9 grads, 10 years, and I've loved every minute of it, and it has been truly a gratifying pleasure to work with the kids here. And this grad class has been so much fun to work with. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. Okay. Thanks to Mr. Crowley on behalf of the grads and their families. Thank you for your stewardship at Rockridge. You have supported all of us in our journeys. Now, the grad class has elected the person whom they feel best represents their class to give the valedictory address. To be elected by your peers for this esteemed position is indeed the greatest honor at Grad. I present now our valedictorian to speak on behalf of the class of 2012, Ilyana Voth.
It's just me, or it's a little hot in here. Thank you, Ms. Pereira. Thank you, Mr. Crowley. Thank you to all my awesome grads. Last speech, I promise, and then you're home free. Allow me to start at the beginning. Let me take you all the way back to the day that I was born. My mother tells me that the first time she held me in her arms, she didn't hold me, she held me in her arms, and I looked back at her with my eyes. I stared at her with an expression that simply said, "Who are you, and what am I doing here?" 15 years later, I sat staring up at my grade 8 English teacher, Mr. Mercer, with a very similar expression on my face. In fact, I seem to remember most of the class wore that expression. At the time, he was explaining to us grade 8s why gentlemen are supposed to walk on the outside of women on the sidewalk. Apparently, it goes all the way back to Elizabethan England. Gardy Lou, anybody? Yeah, English 8. Who needs Shakespeare when we can learn all about ancient plumbing systems in England? Then, 1 year later, in Science 9, came the 1996 VHS documentary, The Miracle of Life. An incredibly detailed, 185-minute educational film on human reproduction and development. The first 181 minutes were bearable. Needless to say, the expression of utter horror and confusion made a comeback in the last war. I'm sure we can all agree that we would rather sit through another 5-hour lockdown than watch those 4 minutes again. Yeah. Now, grade 10. My goodness, where would we be without Planning 10? I don't know about you guys, but without that class, how could I have ever known that taxidermy was to be my most promising and fitting career? And then grade 11, the year of all freedoms, when PE is no longer mandatory, and now you have a spare, an entire block to get a coffee and pretend to do your homework. It's thrilling. And grade 12. Oh, the valuable nuggets of information we will take with us from this year. By a show of hands, how many grads here could pick out the mating call of the pileated woodpecker? Oh. All right, how many of you have at one point memorized Hamlet's first soliloquy? And how many of you could, that's a could, stand up on your chairs right now and start dancing to "Man, I Feel Like a Woman" or "Sexy Thing"? It's amazing that in these last 5 years, these are the kinds of things we're going to remember, whether we'd like to or not. And honestly, it can be difficult to see how all this is supposed to have prepared us for this next step. And in that respect, this is actually a really terrifying time for all of us. Whether we're staying in Vancouver, beginning our careers, or traveling across the world to continue our studies. How can we know that that we're ready. Well, let's think about it. Think about everything that Rockridge has carried us through these last 5 years. Maybe what it's like to fall in love, or what it's like to be so painfully embarrassed that you can hardly show up for school the next day. Or most of us have probably learned by now what it's like to be yelled at by someone twice your age, or idolized by someone half your size. And I'm sure plenty of us can now tell you how it feels to drive and consequently scratch your first car. We've learned so much more than what's included in our course lesson plans, not just by our teachers, but through each other. Michael Harvey, a compassionate leader and a true role model, both on the rugby field and in the classroom. You've shown us that any situation could always use a little laughter. Kelsey Dennison, you've taught us that with a little bit of insane determination, an Ivy League education is not just something that you hear about in movies. Allie Spencer, you've taught us that photography can be so much more than a hobby. So it can be a creative way into a passionate and I'm very sure successful future. Rowan Kahn, you've shown us that it's still possible to graduate high school and pull off an acceptance into one of the best liberal arts colleges in the States, despite only taking 2 classes in grade 12. Taylor Barrow, you've taught us everything there ever is to know about the Liberal Party of Canada. I swear, this kid's going to be our next Prime Minister. It really scares me. Hillary Drake, you've shown us that it's possible to be a spectacular artist, a strong student, and a gifted athlete all at the same time. With all that talent, modesty is rare, but you've shown us that it's easy. And Sage Lummers, one of the only people I have ever met that has never been anything other than kind, honest, and caring for everybody around him. You've never been anything other than yourself, Sage, and we all thank you for that. Plus, your dance moves will be sincerely missed. Every single student on this stage has taught me something, but of course, we can't forget our teachers, our mentors, guides, and role models through these last 5 years. I speak for us all when we say that we cannot thank you enough. You've given us so much more than letter grades and lesson plans. You've taught us all that enthusiasm and passion for whatever it is that we decide to do with the rest of our lives will be the key to our success. Take, for example, my biology teacher this year, Miss Wood. Never before have I met anyone able to make photosynthesis in green algae seem so absolutely stupid. Or Miss Miak, our calculus teacher. You know she loves what she does, and she almost tears up in laughter over a derivative-related knock-knock joke. And Mr. Harding, I hope you're here. It's teachers like you who are the nutrient-rich soil to our ever-growing ecosystem of knowledge. But all jokes and cheesy metaphors aside, you all have truly inspired me. You've inspired all of us, and our time together will never be forgotten. We are up on the stage right now, staring over this ocean of opportunities, and whether we think so or not, we're ready to jump in. Last cheesy metaphor, I promise. But most of all, we owe our success to the ones we rarely ever thank. The cooks, the ATMs, and the punching bags who for the past 18 years of our lives packed all our lunches and turned blind eyes to the volcanic wastelands we like to call our bedrooms. The unsung heroes who sat outside the school after every day, waiting to take us home. To our parents, I love you, Mom and Dad. So this is to all the parents out there who at one point held us, each one of us, in their arms and introduced us into this crazy and confusing place, and who now watch us as we walk into it alone. But we are not alone. And if there's one thing that we can tell each of you right now, it's that thanks to you, and thanks to all of our teachers, and thanks to each other, we're ready. We're so ready. I will be a taxidermist. Might even have my own taxidermist office, or whatever taxidermists have. And in that case, I will have Planning Chen to thank. But what we've learned in our high school classes up until now is not even half of what high school has taught us. And as we walk across the stage today, taking our last few steps together as a grad class, we'll take with us not what we've learned, but who we've learned it with. And I'm really glad I got to learn it with you guys. So.
Thank you, Ilyana. We will savor your words tonight. I think that we echo what you said when, I know in kindergarten it was hard to let go of their little hand as they went to school. And in many ways, from mom and dad's point of view, or the staff's point of view, it's hard to let go of your hand as you move forward once again in this big step in your life. So, Grad, as your futures begin to unfurl over the horizons, continue to raise your voice. Continue to be athletes, scholars, and global citizens. Continue to put your mantle of protection around others. To repeat the lyrics of our theme song, we measure our lives in love. We have 175 journeys to plan. Well, now, get ready to rock. We are going to have what we call throw your hats on. So the commencement ensemble would again take the stage. While they're preparing, after the commencement ensemble, perhaps you know the very last note is when we throw our hats, then